It was the trio's first night in Neponess. Morgan entered their room wearing a skimpy bathrobe. The woman's side has a really big bathtub. So does the men's. It's set like a public bathhouse. Communal bathing. It supposedly brings emotional intimacy, in addition to the various economic benefits. That doesn't sound sanitary. The rooms and tub are scrubbed twice a day, and there's chlorine in the bath. She gave herself a sniff and shrugged. Sitting across the room from Ed, she pulled out an individually wrapped cookie from her pocket. Barca was already asleep atop the dresser. Ed had the raksha from her bag laid out around him, in a purposefully disorganized manner, because there was a chance that organizing them in a particular manner could cause an unintended ritual. Magic is a lot like a box of chocolates, only with a significantly higher chance of ending all life on the planet, or turning you into a fire hydrant. Morgan bit into the cookie. Kind of boring, huh? No TV, no internet? It's your fault we're here. She continued munching. I'll pick up some reading material tomorrow, he sighed. Have you figured anything out just by staring at them? She nodded to the raksha. He pointed to the two short swords. They had fiery etchings on the dark blades with ring hooks at the bottom of the grips and by the hilts. Do these have a fire enchantment like the gourd? Those are for killing demons and stuff not supposed to be on this plane. He narrowed his gaze at her and pointed to the bundle of thin chains. She scratched her ear. A powerful binding spell? They're durable and give the binder the strength of an ox for each chain held? Where did you hear these descriptions? I'm not supposed to say. Are you physically capable of saying it? They didn't put a spell on me to keep me quiet, if that's what you're asking. They? As in, I'm leaving the gender and number ambiguous, they? Fair enough. He pointed to the shotguns. I don't remember. Probably best not to use them in that case. He pointed to the knives. Ah, I know this one. They have an anchoring effect. Elaborate, please. She motioned for a knife which he carefully handed her, and she stabbed it through the discarded plastic bag before handing it back. Try to pull it out. I see. He gave it a good tug, but it was stuck tight. Only the one who planted it can remove it? Or threw it. He pulled a little harder. And it reinforces the surrounding area? I guess. I get it, he cheerfully exclaimed. The knives attach to the chains and are used to create a makeshift spiderweb. Then the hooks on the swords are used to tighten the web, locking the victim in place. Morgan shrugged. Barca, having woken up due to Ed's excitement, crawled down to the shotguns and peered down one of the barrels. Barca, be careful. Actually, do you see anything? Barca shook his head. Ed hovered over it. Actually, how do you load this? It fires off fragments of your spirit. No ammo needed. I thought you said you didn't know what it does. I thought you already figured that part out, Mr. Spiderweb. He grumbled as he carefully returned everything to the bag in the same placement they originally were, in the opposite order he took them out. Where's the bed? She asked. Without a word, he retrieved 2 futons from the closet and laid them out next to each other with their pillows, but put both blankets atop each other only by one of the pillows. Ed lied on the futon without the blankets. Morgan rolled herself up in the blankets and back up next to Ed, who immediately rolled away. I told you we're not doing that. It's too hot. She solemnly wormed away to the far side of her futon. Her unsupported head dropped past her shoulder. He sighed and tried to put a pillow under her head, but she scooted further. Don't be stubborn. Those boobs of yours give you enough neck problems. I get the blankets, you get the pillows. That's the arrangement. I'm already a big enough pain in your neck, apparently. You're not wrong. He lied next to her, put the pillows under his head and his arm under hers, and she scooted even closer to him. Around that time, in a nearby district, Atepi was headed back to the inn, chanting silently while gently grasping the beads around his neck. He stopped at an intersection at the faint sound of a voice carried on the wind. From the corner of his eye, a small person stood behind a lamppost. He turned to look, but no one was there, a post too thin to hide anyone. It was late, and he had a lot to do the following morning, but he'd be back. The next morning, Ed handed Haruka the dish he'd just made. I'm glad you have relatively modern appliances. These lessons will be of minimal use to me otherwise. I couldn't run my business without them. She tried a bit of each portion of food. Not bad for your first try, unless you were lying about your experience. That would be counterproductive to my learning experience. Now, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being your own, how do you rate mine? A 6. That's unacceptable even for my first try. I attempted to copy your every move. He looked over the kitchen. Where did I go wrong? For starters, don't blindly copy me. I'm showing you how to do it, not what to do. That's what learning is. Haruka, this is my style. Your cooking is excellent, so I'm using it as a base. Once I can perfectly replicate it, I look at every detail, find out what works, why, and go from there. Is everything just a science to you, Mr. Robot? Everything is a science. Cooking is mostly chemistry, with a little biology and psychology mixed in, since one needs to keep in mind what the subject finds palatable, as well as nutritional needs. Subject? Morgan called out. Ed, I'll be ready in 5 minutes, then I'll be waiting on you. He nodded to Haruka. Thank you for the lesson. I'll be back in the afternoon to tend to my chores. He then dumped everything on the plate into his mouth, chewing slowly, covering his mouth to keep his bulging cheeks from popping out a single bit of food. Breakfast, punctuality, and not wasting food. All very important. He felt Haruka was smart enough to gather as much from such a display. She lit a cigarette as he walked away. What a weird guy. Elsewhere, a middle-aged shop owner was speaking with a man in a black suit with a blue dress shirt. The shop owner was on his knees as the man sat atop the bodies of his family. The man ran his fingers through his slicked-back hair. I trust I have your attention. Please, don't hurt my family. No, it seems I don't have it yet. He flipped out a knife. Wait, you have it. Please. That's better. Now, I hear the shops in this street are paying money to certain groups for protection from those groups. I don't know about you, but I personally find such extortion despicable. Don't you? He swallowed and nodded slowly. How much are you paying them? 50%? That's outrageous. I wouldn't stand for it. But not everyone is blessed with the power to deal with such fiends. I am. And for a modest price, I can take care of your problem. Interested? He slowly nodded. I understand your hesitation. Now, we will require a bit of payment, but that's just to cover expenses. A measly 50% of your income, and those extortionists will be a thing of the past. Yes, fine, I'll pay. Now, please. You made the right decision, sir. Now, my men and I shall take our leave. I'll send a representative tomorrow to collect. After he left, the shop owner scurried to the body on top of the pile. He gently tapped his daughter's face. Wake up! Please, wake up! And she did, with a yawn. The rest of his family woke up shortly after. The man in the suit tapped the shoulder of the 2 men waiting outside for him, and they walked off. Akia, the man asked. You heard that exchange in there, yes? Yes, sir. How would you describe that? He was clearly at a loss for words. Effective? Not sure why I asked. Sugihara, what about you? Affable yet cruel, he said, adjusting his glasses. I don't think playing the fool was very effective, Ishiguro-san. One could tell he wasn't what one would call a confident man, but this wasn't the first time he offered friendly criticism to this man. Yes, I agree. It's hard to find the right balance between friendly and threatening. We'll try again at the next job. Perhaps less patronizing this time? Ed had finished his latest job on Morgan's behalf, and the 2 were headed off to lunch when she asked, So, tech is only illegal here if you don't have a permit? It's a bit more complicated than that. Well, a lot more. Boring stuff? Boring and painful. That's legal stuff for you. She had led him to a small restaurant. The place was at half capacity as the lunch rush was dying down, but Ed's eyes immediately caught the sight of a familiar young couple waving them over. He turned on his heel to leave, but felt Morgan's hand on his stomach. She turned to face the door with him as he brought up his arm to drape across her shoulders. A simple yet practiced motion. He asked in a gravely drawn-out voice, Why? I've talked to them every time you've shown off. I wasn't showing off, he interrupted. You're like a celebrity to them now. They want some FaceTime. And? And either they pay for our lunch or we go elsewhere and you pay. Without another word, Ed and Morgan headed for the booth. Hey, Eddie, Lonnie said to the two who sat across from them. I thought you were going to leave there for a second. Morgan tells me this is your treat. Sure, man. I mean, the hero gig doesn't really pay much unless you're one of the big names, right? Ed glanced at Morgan. You didn't tell him I'm not a hero? She shrugged. He won't listen. Hey, I listened. He cut in. But come on, you saved me and Janet, and next time we see you, you're fighting off those guys to help that waitress. You're like a ninja, Janet cheerfully added. Normal people don't do that. What's your power? I bet it's like super combat, right? Or you can, like, analyze a situation in a second and figure out what you need to do? Ed was about to say something to the effect of not needing bandages if that were the case, when a waiter came over and asked for their order. Janet apologized. We didn't know what to order since everything is in Nipponese. Morgan looked at the menu. No, Peranto's written above the Nipponese characters. But they're Nipponese words, she elaborated, and no pictures. Ed sighed. You're both vegetarians, right? Lonnie looked at him with mild surprise. How'd you know? Ed ordered the couple appropriate dishes, with a large katsudon for himself. Morgan just ordered a small sushi platter. See? Janet nudged Lonnie. I knew they've been to Nipponese before. Nope, Ed said. First time. And anthros can't just walk around without their owners, Morgan added, let alone leave the country. Ed noticed how she worded that, but continued. Nipponese, Dynastasia, and Sylvania are all on the Edge City border. I've taken the liberty of familiarizing myself with their cuisine, I've taken the liberty of familiarizing myself with their cuisine, cultures, and a passable amount of their language. He took a deep breath. In addition, here we go, Morgan sighed with a smile. I gathered you were vegetarians based on a combination of minor details such as your complexion and the kind of people you are. What's that supposed to mean? Lonnie asked, almost offended. Don't interrupt, Lonnie. Sorry, but I'm not a hero, he continued. The heroes you're referring to, though colloquially referred to as heroes, are officially called crusaders. I wouldn't necessarily call them heroes any more than any other police or security force, given that they're just law enforcers with drastically less regulation. I'm also not part of any of the city's security forms. I'm an altruist. I find altruist is a more appropriate term for me. He looked at Janet. And my behavior was more like a samurai than a ninja. And then at Morgan. Yes, samurai. I'm aware of the distinction between samurai and ronin. I wasn't going to say anything. She shook her head, maintaining her amused smile. Being an altruist, he continued back to Lonnie, I do, in fact, just do that. I don't have any abilities, and I am henceforth limiting you to 20 questions to prevent you from asking the same questions ad nauseum. You're henceforth? Janet asked. Morgan explained what that meant, and what ad nauseous meant. Another waiter brought Morgan and Ed a glass of milk and beer, respectively. I was at least able to order that for you, Lonnie said proudly. In what seemed like a long-practiced, synchronized movement, Morgan and Ed switched glasses and took a sip. Lonnie cleared his throat. Right, so 20 questions, huh? Oh, wait, that wasn't one of them. It's like a game, Janet smiled. 20 good questions can tell you just about everything about a person, Ed explained, especially if you pay attention to how they answer. In the few minutes it took Lonnie to think of some good questions, their lunches had arrived. In a similar motion to the glasses, Ed and Morgan switched dishes. She smiled innocently at the couple. I just want a taste. Okay, Lonnie spoke up. So, you're not a crusader or city security. What do you do for a living? I do various tasks to get money, but I am currently unemployed. He glanced at Morgan. Officially. Did you used to do something? Wait, what I mean was, what was your old job? Didn't have one. I'm only 17, so I'm still in high school. You're only 17? Yes. How are you younger than me? I was born after you, but you look so much older. Bad genetics and stress. You're down to 16 questions, by the way. Wait, those counted? Of course, and now it's 15. But I gave you that limit specifically to keep you from asking stupid questions. Janet was counting on her fingers. This is hard. Morgan swallowed another spoonful of the katsudon. For starters, don't get so surprised by his answers. Use a question to start a conversation. Get him talking and he'll offer up free info. Janet looked at Ed's stone face and loudly whispered at Morgan. Does that count as cheating? I'm not going to dissuade Morgan from teaching others how to use their heads, he explained. Lonnie thanked her. Is there anything you want to know about me and Janet? No limit on questions. No, 14. Oh, come on, you hardly know us. We might be really interesting. Have a cool job, awesome powers. Didn't he say that he didn't have any powers? Janet asked. Babe, I got this. Oh, he might want to know how we met. Sure, Lonnie motioned between himself and Janet. Ed sighed. Neither of you are employed. You both live off of your parents and party on Lonnie's coin. You both met at a social event. Lonnie asked you out. And while both of you are metahumans, neither of your powers are particularly noteworthy, whatever they are. You can't possibly know that, Lonnie said straight. You sure about that? Positive. I know you're trying to avoid asking how I know it. I'm not asking. It's tearing you up inside. Kind of. Look at your clothes, your diet, your mannerisms, your personality, choice of words. You've made no effort to hide what kind of people you are. On the contrary, you broadcast it. You go to big social events on a regular basis regardless of why the event is actually being held. I can tell by your faces you regularly get a full night's sleep and don't have a care in the world. I can tell from Lonnie's clothes, personality, and the way he leads Janet around that not only is he the more well-off, but even if he wasn't, he'd still insist on paying for everything. Coupled with Janet's personality, of course he'd be the one to ask her out. And if your powers were noteworthy, you'd have tried them against the punk on the train. These details, with many more too minor to even bother mentioning, paint a very clear picture. Janet looked at the bowl in front of Morgan. Did you eat all of that? Do you want that to be one of the 20 questions? She asked, deceptively sweetly, wiping her lips with a napkin. Janet started stumbling with her words. Ed said he didn't have any powers. I wonder what that means. Lonnie chewed down a mouthful. It means his metagene hasn't activated yet. Aw, Ed, there's nothing wrong with being a late bloomer. I'm not a bloomer at all, he corrected them. I don't have a metagene. I'm an inert, a drite, a dull, an ungifted, 100% baseline human. No powers at all, ever. But he does own a thesaurus, Morgan smiled. But I am curious what your powers are, she motioned to the couple. Anything good for a laugh? Lonnie placed the side of his hand on the table, and the salt shaker started wobbling towards it. I can kind of move small things with my mind. Ed grabbed the shaker and slammed it back in place. Janet twirled her hair around her finger. I can help people remember things, like small things. Like if my dad loses his keys and I ask him where he last saw them, and he remembers where he left them. Or if my mom loses her telecharger and I ask her where the last place she saw it, and she remembers. Or if... We get it! Ed snapped. Do you not like us because we have powers? Janet asked. We're not freaks. I'm the freak, Ed groaned. Metas have been the majority of the world's population for decades now. No, I'm envious. Of course it's better to have a power. You guys can both do at least one thing I can't. Even if I can recreate the results in a practical manner, I can never do it in the same manner you two can. But both of you can do pretty much anything I can. You're physically capable, provided you were to apply yourselves. Lonnie chuckled. That's not true. Neither of us could have gotten out of those fights like you did. You could if you trained. Lonnie smiled. Will you train me? Janet whispered to him. I think that's 13. Off in another Nipponese district, inside one of the rooms of a small abandoned apartment complex, the 4 men Ed had beaten up the day prior stood, surrounded by several other men, and before them sat the man with the blue undershirt, Ishiguro, on the only cushioned piece of furniture in the room. He had narrow features and 3 distinct earrings on his left ear. He spoke softly but confidently. It's come to my attention that you four were short on your collections this week. At first, I thought you might be skimming, that you might think I'm not paying you enough. No, boss, it's not like that, the one blurted out before dropping to the floor, asleep. I wasn't done speaking. I said I thought you were skimming at first. But what kind of boss would I be if I didn't notice you four covered in bruises and cuts when you'd come back, with broken swords and torn clothes? You were in a fight, yes? The three nodded. And they stole the money. The three nodded. Who was it? The Black Irons? Gaikatsu's freaks? We've never seen him before, one explained. He's from Edge. Hold on. The boss raised his hand. It was one man? The gang member swallowed. Yes, sir. Just wanted to make sure. He waved his hand. Continue. He was at the bar on the street you put us on. He had a beard and a weird hat. And a flowery armband, another added. I think it was his shirt, added the third. He was with that Catwoman. She wrapped it around his shoulder. Why would she wrap his shirt around his Why would she wrap his shirt around his shoulder? I don't know. I wasn't paying that close attention. You were drunk. So were you. Ishiguro massaged his temple. What ability did he have? They responded. I don't know. He threw a snake at us. A mutant one. And a chair. It was a regular chair. And a giant bug. That was dead. He didn't seem that tough, but when he got his hand on that sword, it was like he was possessed. The boss was exerting visibly more effort to maintain his patience. What kind of sword? It was a katana. It looked brand new. He thought for a moment. Could be one of the other gangs hired some outside help, or perhaps he's someone trying to play hero. He chortled before falling deeper into thought, interlocking his fingers and bringing his thumbs to his lips. Boss? A man standing off to the side spoke up. Would you like me to find this man, Ishiguro-san? Yes, the boss responded. Take these four. Find him. Don't fight him. Just find him and let me know. I want to see him for myself. Ed had led Lonnie to an unused fenced-in lot for his first lesson. Lonnie shook out his legs and arms. All right, go easy on the face, okay? I have no intention of hitting you. What, are you gonna use like some mystic force punch stuff? Just come try and hit me so I can tell how incompetent you are. Lonnie scoffed. All right, here I come. Lonnie ran at Ed, swung wild, and landed on his back, with a little help from Ed. Ed looked down at him. You've never been in a fight before, have you? That obvious, huh? For starters, don't drive your fist into your punch. Drive your elbow into it. Let the force flow through your fist. Always be ready to defend, block, or dodge. Don't just charge at your opponent. If you need to close the distance, walk. And walk confidently. Never panic. I know it's hard, especially if you get knocked upside the head, but always stay focused. How many fights have you been in? That's not relevant. Pay attention. Alright, sorry. Now, try again. Lonnie proceeded cautiously this time. Arms up, ready to block. He took a quick jab at Ed's head, but wound up with his arm held behind his back. Better, but we'll have to work on making your attacks less obvious. Ed let go of his hand. You were focusing a bit too much on my head. Alright, Sensei. Here, how about you try to punch me? Show me how you do it. Ed let out a left jab at the air, followed by a right hook. Learn anything? I think. Well, I'm not training you to be a boxer. Just some basic self-defense. It's not like I ever throw a punch anyway. What do you mean you don't punch? What about that guy on the train? Ed thought back. I threw, zapped, stabbed. I'm familiar with the science of hand-to-hand, but the only unarmed techniques I'm practiced with are defensive. Then how are you supposed to win? Ed pulled out his knife for a moment before twirling it back into his pocket. That's dirty. On the contrary, I clean it regularly. You know what I mean. I'm content with my opponent giving up and leaving, or with helping my opponents defeat themselves. But if I have to put them down fast, there are effective alternatives to bare fists. Alright then, how about you teach me one of those throws? In due time. I can't in good conscience leave you ignorant of the basics. Frankly, I'm surprised you hadn't tucked your thumbs inside your fists. Right. But just as a reminder, why shouldn't I? Meanwhile, since Lonnie decided at the last minute to train with Ed, instead of taking Jan to the beach, she took Morgan to the beach, the latter of whom decided to sunbathe. Her ears tucked under her unbound hair and tail wrapped around her waist, hidden beneath a short sarong. Hey, Morgan, want to play volleyball? No, thanks. Look, they have a net set up over there. Still no. Aw, come on, it'll be fun. Morgan raised her sunglasses at her. You were head of the debate team, weren't you? Janet pulled Morgan up by the arm and managed to get her over to the net. You've never played before, right? Watch, I'll serve and you just hit back. Morgan tied her hair back into a ponytail, keeping her ears tucked away. Dinner's on you if I win, right? All right, that's the spirit. Just hit the ball back over the net. First to 20 points wins. And the other person buys dinner. Janet served. With a glint in her eye, Morgan leapt into the air and returned the ball with a somersault kick. Janet's next realization was the explosion behind her. She turned to see the ball resting in a fairly sized crater in the sand. Morgan stretched. I'm going to need a big dinner to replace all the calories I'm burning. Should I come back later? Atepi asked, having come upon Ed straddling a restrained Lonnie. Maybe when you're decent? Ed got off Lonnie and dusted himself off. What's a little indecency in between friends? If you're not busy, can you come with me? My father, Balso, wants to meet with you. You mean your great-grandfather? No. Atepi was visibly confused. He's my father. Adopted. Biological. You understand my confusion, right? He's a bit advanced in years, but really he's not as old as he looks. He looks like a leather bag and a prune had a baby, and that baby was in a fire. I don't understand how you came from that without at least one generational buffer. Atepi maintained an uncomfortable smile. We should get going. Can I come? Lonnie asked. Ed shrugged. I don't see why not. Atepi agreed, and the three headed off. You know, Ed, Lonnie spoke up, I don't think you should be commenting on how old someone looks. I don't believe I've made an inaccurate statement. Atepi gave Lonnie a questioning look, prompting him to explain Ed was only 17. Atepi couldn't think of anything nice to say, so he remained silent. Morgan returned to sunbathing, and Janet collapsed next to her, panting and toweling off. Why aren't you even sweating? Morgan put 2 fingers over Janet's lips. Hush, just breathe, lie back and relax. She hadn't the chance to even get comfortable before a trio of young men approached them. Hey girls, you look like you're enjoying yourselves. Yeah, we are, Janet said cautiously. Morgan ignored them. But you both seem kind of lonely, the second added. Would it be alright if we kept you company? The third asked. No, that's alright, we're fine, she assured them. The more the merrier, right? The second insisted. The first turned to Morgan. What do you think, baby? Morgan brushed her hair away so one of her cat ears could pop up. Huh? What was that? The three immediately freaked out. What the hell? Don't you know you're supposed to keep a collar on your pets? Man, forget these two, the second said as they left. Janet looked to Morgan as she tucked her ear away. I'm sorry about that, Morgan. I'm not. She raised her eyebrow with a smile. It got rid of them, didn't it? Atepi and the others passed by a number of buildings, seemingly built into the side of each other, all closed down and boarded up. He led them down to the first alley separating the connected rows of buildings. I'm not a fan of these places, Atepi said as he showed the bouncer a small parchment and was allowed entrance, followed by Ed and Lonnie, who had to pay their way in. That alone earned them a low opinion of the place. The inside was surprisingly large. As it turned out, at least 3 of the neighboring buildings were a farce, hiding a single establishment. There were 2 drink bars and several gambling tables scattered throughout. But they seemed to be an afterthought to the arena pit in the middle of everything, within which a large creature, a mass of tentacles, was having its way with 5 consenting women. In ancient times, such demons occasionally surfaced to menace humanity. Eventually, modern weapons and mysticism proved too much for them, severely limiting their appearance. And then, some more unscrupulous individuals decided that they could make a profit off some of them. At 2 shows a day, 3 on Saturday. Atepi was noticeably uncomfortable as he remained focused, his eyes barely hovering above the floor. Lonnie couldn't help staring at the main attraction, not sure what to make of it. Ed stroked his beard. That one with the short hair is a real trooper. What the hell is this? Lonnie asked. If you go to Tercello, you're legitimately interested in taking in the culture, the good, the bad, and the weird, you go to a donkey show. In Ipanez, you go to a tentacle show. But you don't want to go to Savania. What do they have there? I just meant as a general rule. Don't go to Savania. The place is an armpit. Atepi cleared his throat. My father's over there. Is he into this kind of thing? Lonnie asked. Atepi ignored the question. Ed sat down at the table with the old shaman without any invitation. Hey, Balso, enjoying the sounds and smells? Contrary to all reason? Balso waved away at Tepi. Thank you, son. I'll leave you to check the wards. Make sure they're charged. We don't want these things escaping. Of course, father. He turned to Lonnie. I think you'll want to come with me. Will we be getting away from... Lonnie motioned towards the pit. Yes. Well, what are we waiting for? When they were left alone at the table, Ed chuckled. Those two just don't appreciate culture. So, Balso, come here often? Anything on the menu you'd recommend? Ideally not related to sausages? Are you not at all curious why I called you here? Honestly, I'm just rambling. The more I talk, the less I have to breathe in the atmosphere. I wanted to talk to you about your job. Ed was about to say something when Balso cut him off. It has nothing to do with this. The main reason I wanted to meet you here is to show you that having a job is not always exciting or glamorous. You can't tell, but I'm nodding sarcastically. But what we do is necessary, to keep the balance between the spiritual and the physical, to keep both sides safe. I know what a shaman is. Do you know what a Noctivagus is? Yes, what about them? One is killing people across Newport. Sounds like a matter for the police. Do you really think they're equipped to handle a Noctivagus? Do you think we are? I know we are. Killed some before, have you? They walk the line between the physical and the spiritual. They can be exercised like any demon. That's vaguely racist. I know they don't really have a good relationship with, well, anyone, but they are one of the humanoid races. Doesn't that mean we have to at least pretend to respect them? They devour the blood and souls of the innocent. Of people in general. Is that better? I'm having a hard time focusing on this debate while all that flailing is going on behind you. The sword I gave you is an effective weapon against both the physical and the spiritual. It can sever the very line that they walk. So why do you need me? Why don't you just use the sword and leave me out of your street justice? Street justice? What do you call that display at the restaurant yesterday? Me losing my temper on a bunch of creeps harassing a waitress? That's a far cry from premeditated murder. What you did yesterday was bond with the spirit of that sword. I suppose I also did that. In most people's hands, this would just be a sword. It requires special training to draw out the spirit in a testimonia. But it naturally flowed into you, temporarily turning you into the very warrior who once wielded that blade. So, that's why we could use your help. Ed massaged his eyes. Every time they devour a person's essence, the Noctivagus gains everything that person was. Their knowledge, their strength, their lifespan. Every soul lost to this creature further increases the threat it poses to humanity. Ed sighed. Yeah, I know. You said it's already killed. Who? I need to know what I'm up against. As far as I know, it's killed at least one family and 3 metahumans, possessing the powers of aim dodging, self-liquefaction, and spike protrusion. Ed thought about that. The ability to instinctively and easily dodge an aimed attack, to turn oneself into a liquid, and to generate spikes. Those last two, don't Noctivagus have limited shape-shifting abilities? Couldn't one liquefy and make spikes on their own? Why go after a couple of hard targets that would gain them any... Why go after a couple of hard targets that wouldn't gain them any more than a regular person? With training, they could duplicate those abilities on their own. It could be this one's looking to take a shortcut of sorts. But they can look like the people they've already killed naturally. Yes, but I don't have pictures of the victims. How do you know it's even a Noctivagus that's responsible? The victims were found drained of their blood. It wasn't merely spilled, it was taken. My specialty is divining. I have detected the presence of a Noctivagus, but it's masking its exact location. So, you want me to help you fight a Noctivagus, who has a method of concealing its exact location, and thus some access to magic. And an unknown level of training in both magic and natural abilities, and is able to look like any of its victims who we don't know what they look like. and is not only highly agile, but is able to grow spikes and turn into liquid, and maybe even other powers if it's killed any metahumans we're unaware of. Do you now understand the threat we're dealing with here? Yeah, do you understand why I'm not interested? We have a duty to protect people, innocents, loved ones. Ed thought of Morgan, and he felt Barca scratching his back. It was a short list, but enough. His blood had little to offer, but those two could be prime targets. Balsa continued, As much of a threat as he is, we won't have a better chance to take him out than now. You won't be alone. Atepi and I can inhibit his abilities, but we'll need you to finish him off. Ed rubbed his neck. Can I get something tangible for this job? A little sugar with my medicine? If you agree to help, I'll entrust the sword to you. Nothing like a priceless ancient weapon to get one to bend their already flexible principles. It was at that point Lonnie had come back with Atepi. What's that about flexible principles? Ed pointed to the pit. I was just thinking that flexible one looks like a bit like my old school principal. Atepi winced. Morgan and Janet picked up their belongings from the beach, which Morgan carried the most of. Janet was already going to buy them dinner after losing, and after having her boyfriend ditch her at the last minute, carrying the heavy stuff would keep the day from being a total wash for her. Morgan? She asked. How did you get so strong? A very precise training regimen. Gotta stay fit and healthy. Oh, I just thought you had like a power or something. Janet didn't see Morgan move, but found her staring her down. She didn't remember her being that much taller than her, nor the world being quite so dark, nor her golden eyes being quite so bright, the only light in the encroaching darkness. Now, Janet, that's just silly, Morgan spoke with a steady tone. Anthros getting powers are really rare, and illegal. Meta-anthros are euthanized. And killed. If I had an ability, I'd have to be killed. That's why it's good I don't have a power, right? Right. So, why am I so strong? A precise training regiment? Morgan paused before backing off. Close enough. The world was much brighter for it. She gave Janet a playful elbow and a friendly smile. Come on, you still owe me dinner. So, you two are going to kill a vampire, Lonnie said out loud, more to himself than them. It's not a vampire, Lonnie, Ed corrected. But they do suck blood. So do mosquitoes. And they sleep in coffins, Atepi added. They hibernate. The coffins are just there to keep the dust off them. And they're weak against silver, Lonnie added. Just like vampires. Vampires aren't weak to silver, Atepi thought aloud. Ed groaned. Some more recent iterations of vampires in fiction have them weak to silver. I guess because it's cooler than garlic. But a recurring trait is a weakness to sunlight. Noctavega can walk around in the daylight. Lonnie scratched his ear. There was that one movie where they sparkled. Those weren't vampires either! Why are you so upset about this? Atepi asked. Aside from it being a matter of factual accuracy, it's propaganda. Yes, there are a few similarities, but it's those similarities and a previously established animosity towards them that led to various people throughout history painting them as these irredeemable monsters. But Noctavega are real people who get a bad reputation for various reasons. Yes, they get stronger by devouring other humanoid species. That's how their species works. Yes, they allied with a psychotic Deva thousands of years ago. They lost, and they've largely been in isolation ever since. But no one ever talks about the likes of Damon Reddirge, the first Noctavegas police officer, or Carmela Roth Coldwing. She was an archaeologist. Roberto Cervantes, he was an actor in silent films, lived peacefully for decades until people found out. They killed him just because of how he was born. He didn't even fight back, just to show that not all of them are killers. He sat back as they beat him to death, and for Noctavegas, that takes a long time. Damn, Lonnie rubbed his neck. I didn't know all that. That's messed up. Ed? Atepi waited for him to catch his breath. Are you going to be okay? I'm fine. I mean with tonight. He took a calming breath. This one's killing people, so I'll kill it. I just don't want innocent people getting blamed for things they didn't do. They're still people. I don't throw the whole bushel out because of some bad apples. Atepi noticed him gyrate his shoulder. Father told me you hurt your shoulder. Does it still hurt? Only always. You hide it well. Pain is just another state of mind I don't like dwelling on. I agree with Lonnie. He gently patted Ed's back. You are weird. I think it's actually kind of cool, Lonnie explained. It's already been plastered, Ed explained. I'll be fine for tonight. You're drunk? You mental sphincter, he sighed. Do you guys have wooden stakes for tonight? If not, I can help you carve some. It's not a vampire, Lonnie! But you kill it by stabbing it in the heart, right? Atepi rubbed his chin. Don't most things die if you stab them in the heart? I just want to help. We'll be fine, Lonnie. My father and I will weaken it, then Ed will kill it, he said curtly. Yes, sorry. I'm not used to talking like this. Exorcisms are one thing. Ending an unlife is somewhere between an exorcism and a murder. Yes, I understand we're doing this to save lives, but it's the principle of it. Yes, exactly. Don't sweat it. I'm the one with the sword. You two just focus on weakening it. Lonnie took a second to study their faces. It looks like neither of you want to do this. It cuts close to crossing the line for us, Ed explained. Atepi nodded. Not to change the subject, but Lonnie lightly elbowed Atepi. Think you can show me some of those shaman moves? At least enough that I can watch out for myself? I suppose, but it will depend largely on your own innate ability. I'm gonna see dead people, Lonnie jokingly whispered. Atepi just nodded with pursed lips. Come on, no one got that reference? That was a reference? I got it, Ed commented. It just wasn't funny. Atepi pointed out the inn as they were walking alongside the wall towards the entrance. So, this is where you two are staying? Lonnie asked. Yes, Haruka has an excellent inn. She takes care of it all by herself. I've only known her a short while, Ed added, but it's easy to see she is a remarkable young woman. Lonnie rounded towards the entrance with them. So, she's hot? Like the heart of a star in its prime, Ed nudged Atepi. Thanks again for recommending this place. I didn't recommend this place because she's hot, Atepi explained as they entered. Not that I think she's hot. That's fine, Haruka added. Haruka turned around, drying her hands from doing dishes, a cigarette hanging from her mouth. You never had a shot with me anyway. No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant I have things to do. He retreated towards his room, but momentarily stopped at the doorway. Edward, I suggest you get some sleep before tonight. Upon your leave, he waved to Moray, then turned to Haruka. You have a way with men. Lonnie gave Haruka a once-over. Her barely managed hair, weary, mildly annoyed expression, the faint signs of premature wrinkles on a self-employed woman, a shirt showing its years. And, looking to Ed, he saw the first smile on his face in the entire time he knew him. And he was looking at her. Love makes fools of us all, he thought to himself, or something to that extent. He patted Ed's good shoulder. I'll catch you later, man. Ed turned to Haruka, still smiling at her. I told you I'd be back. You're not going to sleep? Not before fulfilling my promise. Washcloth and bucket are in the closet. Your lips say they're in the closet, but your eyes say shut up and get to work, idiot. She didn't react. It's amazing the chemistry we have.